differences. All legal cases are different, and you should seek the advice of your own attorney before acting or making decisions. No attorney-client privilege applies to communications on this show, and no attorney-client relationship is created by calling or writing in. Attorney Rominger practices only in Pennsylvania and maintains his primary office in Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here. Oh, boy, oh, boy. Yeah, what's the question of the week? Who's going to win the fight, Daryl or Merle? Or, what's going to happen? Anybody else watching The Walking Dead besides me, Shane? Do you watch that?
No, I do not.
Oh, my gosh. You got to watch The Walking Dead. It's really good.
You want to hear something loud? I don't have cable.
Well, you don't even need cable to watch. You can watch it now on Vudu, VUDU.com.
I also don't have internet.
Well, why don't you watch it at work while your boss isn't looking?
Yeah, do you want me to just go ahead and do that?
Yeah, that's my advice.
Slowly come up to the conference room, I'll turn it off.
Elmer, you're on the air.
Yeah, Carl, I had a tenant that I had a $2,400 judgment against. But anyhow, I had to tow away one of her trucks. It wasn't tagged, no license or whatever. The township was getting on me for a fine.
Mm-hmm.
I've had this thing for almost a year and a half now. Is there any way to get a title for that truck?
Not for you, but a salvage person can. So you have to get hold of a salver, and they can tow it put it in their yard, write the requisite letters, and get a junk or a salvage title for it.
And then they
maybe sell it back to you.
Maybe sell it back to me.
You could probably work something out with them.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you got a judgment against her,
right,
you could have the sheriff execute against that car and then buy it at the sheriff's sale yourself. Or if you're lucky, somebody else will buy it and you get some cash.
Right. What was that last one? I haven't filed the...
File a judgment in the Prothonotary and execute for a sheriff's sale.
Sheriff.
Execution of a sheriff's sale, yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right, my friend.
Thank you.
540-0580. Jack, you're on the air.
Yes, Carl. First of all, I'd like to say I want to thank you for the service that you provide through information through WHP. I think it's great. The issue is, approximately 40 years ago, my brother was going in the Navy, and he had a handgun, and he told me he'd give it to me. He didn't want, to have it around the children when he was in the Navy. I've taken it out, shot it a couple of times in Target, and cleaned it, threw it in the drawer. It's been laying in the drawer 40 years. And, we moved a couple of times, but anyway, it has not been used. Now, I have a friend who would like to have the gun. I did get a paper from him. He handed it to my wife, which I did not know until I started talking about giving it away. And I said, well, there should be a registration on this pistol. And she said, well, your brother gave me a paper if I can find it. So she did find it, and it's under the guy's name that sold it to my brother.
What state was that in?
Pennsylvania. Unfortunately, my brother passed away 4 years ago. But I do have the name of the guy who sold it, and also he has
I don't think you have to worry. Here's how I understand it. When your brother got it 40 years ago, I'm not certain that it had to be registered or transferred through a or more than 40 years. It had to be registered or transferred through a gun dealer, okay?
It was back in 72, 71, somewhere around there.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that you can take a handgun in due course from a relative or a relative's estate.
Yes.
So if you wanted to sell it, I don't think you should talk to the gun dealer about this, or if there's any of our CDL, our federal firearms, FFLs out there listening right now, I'd love for one of them to call in and answer this. But I think if you just present at the gun dealer with the gun and say it was my brother's gun, and that they will transfer it to the buyer. And I don't think you have to actually have the registration, because remember, we're not a registration state. We're a transfer state.
Okay. So if I just have the paper with the gentleman's name who owned the gun originally.
Yeah. I don't even think you have to even bring that in, but I don't know the answer to that. But my suspicion is, here's the answer. I know that if you go, your father dies, let's say, and you go to the house and mom says, here's dad's handgun. You now lawfully possess that handgun. And you don't have to have any paperwork or any of dad's paperwork or anything. And you can then transfer it to a third party and sell it. It just has to be done at a licensed gun dealer.
Okay.
But they don't go back through the history of the chain of title. You follow me?
Okay, yes, right.
You just have to transfer it. So now there's a transfer paperwork, and the purpose of that is that way there's a background check on the guy who's getting it.
That's true. I understand that. So all I'd have to do is give it. I'm going to give it to him. He's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
And he wants to take it for hunting. So he's going to want to get licensed for it, so he has to take it in and get it registered.
No, you don't register handguns. We don't register handguns. But you have to transfer it at a licensed gun dealer. So I want to be really clear about this. If I have a handgun that I brought in, say I moved here from Missouri, okay?
Okay.
And I bring my handgun with me. I don't have to tell anybody in Pennsylvania what handgun I have or where it is or what the serial number is or anything. I can get a concealed carry permit and they don't even ask me what guns I own. So there's no registration in Pennsylvania. I just want to make sure I'm very clear about that.
But when you go to the store to buy a new gun, you have to
fill out a form, and the state police keep that form in a transaction history, but it's not a registry of guns because it doesn't include every gun.
So that's just for check and see what your past were, whether you had any felonies.
Right. And there was a lawsuit, by the way, and the state police, the anti-gun governor and state police, defended and claimed that they could keep a list of all the firearms that people own because they claimed it wasn't actually a registry because the statute specifically said they couldn't keep a registry. And our Supreme Court, in what I consider to be a total error of law, said, yeah, it's not really a registry because it doesn't include every gun. There's no requirement you register your guns. The state police are just keeping transactional history, so it's not a registry.
So the only thing he'd have to do is file for a permit to carry if he wanted to transport.
Right, and you need to go to transfer that gun to him. You need to go to an FFL, licensed firearms dealer.
Okay.
And pay a fee for them to lawfully transfer it, even though you're selling it for $1 or a gift or $0.
Right.
You still have to transfer it there.
Okay, fine. No, that's good information. I didn't know how to handle it. Didn't want to get him into trouble giving it to him, and he goes to get his license to carry, and
right.
Things would pop up. So that's great information, Carl.
All right, my friend.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye.
540-0580. Jeff, you're on the air.
Hello, Carl. How are you doing today?
Good.
Hey, Carl, I have a question about Social Security insurance. I've recently been declared a 100% disabled vet, and was wondering if I was able to collect any kind of Social Security benefits.
I don't know, but I'm going to tell you a really easy way to find out.
All right.
Go to the local Social Security office and ask, and they're usually very, very competent there.
Okay.
You hear these horror stories about, I went to the DMV or I went here, I went there, and nobody knew the right answer. I'm not saying that they have, Social Security has a corner on accurate answers, but we find overall the people there tend to know pretty well what benefits are available or not available. But the other place you could go, and this is actually maybe even a better idea, each county usually has like a Veteran Service Administration or Office of Veterans Affairs.
Right.
It might behoove you to go to them, and I'll tell you why. Because not only would they be able to answer the question about Social Security, but you could say, are there any other benefits I'm unaware of? Because, Social Security is one, but is there other things out there that may be available to you? And they will know comprehensively what's available to you.
Right. That's a good idea. I didn't even think about that. And
the reason I say is that's their job. They're there to help you, and so they're not only going to know what Social Security benefits, if any, are available, but they might be able to say, well, here's an organization that does this, or here's an organization that does that.
Yeah, I've dealt with them in the past, and they're actually the ones that put me on 100% disability, and they're very helpful here in Cumberland County. So, I'll do that then.
Okay.
Hey, I thank you for your time, Carl.
No, take care.
Mm-hmm.
540-0580. Terry, you're on the phone.
Hi, Carl. When I was 18, I'm 55, and when I was 18, I did something really stupid in Florida. I tried to outrun the police on a motorcycle and got caught, and Settled out of court, whatever. I didn't even recall what the charge was, but I recently applied for a concealed weapons permit, and this is the first time since then, since 76 or 77, that it has haunted me. But I was turned down for the carry permit because I had a charge of resisting arrest and with violence, which I know it doesn't matter, but that didn't happen. But at any rate,
hold on one second. I got to go to break. We're going to answer this when I come back.
Thanks.
540-0580. We got to feed the boss. Hey, welcome back. First of all, Terry, we're going to put you on hold here a little bit longer, only because I do have a firearms guy on here. George.
Yeah, how you doing?
You got the license.
Yeah. In the state of Pennsylvania, you can have a private sale without having to do anything. It is a smarter idea to go through an FFL dealer because then it does show that you do actually not own that gun anymore. What you can do if you don't want to go through one and it's just a private sale, one individual to another, you can just keep a bill of sale, have the person who you're giving the gun to sign and date on the date that you gave him the gun or sold him the gun or whatever. But in private sales, now if he is going to another state, unless he is leaving it to a relative after his death, he has to have it transferred to them through an FFL dealer within that state, especially in some of the neighboring states such as New York, New Jersey, and Maryland. They're very strict about their laws, and they do have registration within the state of New Jersey and New York. I'm not sure about Maryland, but I know those two do.
So what you're telling me is it's possible to do a person-to-person transfer, but it probably wouldn't be recommended.
If it's a long gun,
long
you really
guns,
don't have a lot to worry about.
Yeah, long guns. I'm not. I'm only talking about handguns today because I'm all about buying long guns at yard sales.
Well, handguns, you don't. If you're selling it as a private sale, you don't really have to do that. I mean, if you know the person and know they're not convicted of a crime, because if you knowingly sell something to a person who has a felony record, you will go to jail for it.
So again, let me just come back to how much is it going to cost me if I come to your shop, right? Or over to see you, and you're going to transfer the gun. How much is it going to cost me?
$20.
$20. So for $20, I can avoid any question about whether or not I own the gun any longer.
Right.
For $20, I can avoid any claim that I knew that this guy had a criminal record if he turns out to have one.
Right, because he'll be filling out a piece of paper that goes back to the ATF and is checked by PIC, Pennsylvania Institute. And on there, there's also a question that asks you if you are. And if you lie on that form, they will come and get you.
Yeah, and so my point is, for $20, right?
You're better off doing it that way. For long guns, many people just don't bother, because long guns, they don't care. But for shorts, you might want to do it that way. It's just, what you feel with. If you know this person his whole life and you know he's never been arrested, who cares? Am
I correct with, and let me just finish off here. And I was correct, though, that he doesn't need to show you the title history of the gun to transfer it between two people. If he presents and says, this is my handgun, you're going to take the VIN off of it. VIN.
Serial number.
The serial number. Same idea, right? And you're going to put that on the form for the transfer, but you're not going to run, you don't need to know the title history of the gun.
No, there's no reason to. I mean, the gun doesn't matter. It matters who owns it and who's buying it. If either of those come back as a problem, then, the ATF gets involved in that situation rather than the state police.
Got it.
And if you fill out the form and you lie while you're on the phone, while I'm on the phone with PIC, what happens is they have agents in the area. They will send them right to your shop immediately, and they will arrest that person on the spot. One other thing I wanted to talk to you about, a gentleman was saying that he can't get a concealed carry permit because he was arrested and with violence.
Right.
That's usually a felony, and he wouldn't be able to own a gun.
Yeah, he may be thinking about, sometimes with the misdemeanors with domestic violence under the Lautenberger Act.
That's also restricted, yeah.
And the other thing we've discovered with the state police is when you get your PICS check and you're denied, a lot of times they'll deny you even if it wasn't a crime of domestic violence. If it could have been a crime of domestic violence,
you're not going to be able to buy that gun.
Until the research has been done to show that it isn't a crime of domestic violence. So
you may or may not. You may have to actually take that to court to find out.
We've done that, actually.
Yeah. Well, then you know what I'm talking about. And I've seen that happen. But most of the time, if you have any kind of warrants out for you, or if you've been convicted of a violent crime in the nature of it, which was a felony, you cannot buy a gun, possess a gun. You can't do any of that. As far as getting a concealed carry permit, while this is an open carry state, for a concealed carry, you do need a permit, and they do go through a background check, and if you do have a felony against you and you own a gun, you'll be arrested.
The other thing they'll do, though, is they'll deny you for having an old marijuana charge from 1973 as well, even if it wasn't a felony.
Well, it doesn't really matter to them what the time was. It's your march for life at that point.
Yeah, now,
if you commit the crime, you have the problem.
And Pennsylvania is a state that has no restoration of civil rights.
No, it does not. You can, if you can get the charges expunged through the court, then you have to go to the precinct where you were arrested, show them the expungement papers, and see if they're willing to go along with the court. They don't necessarily have to.
Well, we can, if there's an expungement, we can get your record cleared up to get, but the problem in Pennsylvania is you can't get expungements for convictions unless they're pardoned first. And we have no restoration of civil rights statute. We do have a restoration of firearms rights statute, which will get you back into black powder weapons.
Well, almost anybody can buy a black powder weapon. There's no check for black powder.
There's no check, but here's the deal. If you are under a prohibited offense, a black powder weapon actually meets the state prohibited weapon classification. Correct. So after 10 years,
you could buy it, but I didn't say you wouldn't get arrested if they find out you own it.
Correct. And so we, as I said, we can get you back into lawfully owning black powder in Pennsylvania, but that's the best we can do.
They can also own guns which are not even considered antiques if they go back to a certain point in time that they're no longer even considered viable firearms. If you buy something from the, say, 17th or 18th century or 19th century,
right,
those guns are just not even under those laws.
Right, which is interesting.
Yeah, because they are, well, basically most of them are black powder in nature.
Correct. Now, next week, by the way, I'm going to have a guy from Florida on who's the gun trust lawyer, Dave Goldman, and he's going to talk to us about gun trusts. I'm sure you hear people talking about these things these days.
Well, you leave them in trust for someone through your will. Is that what you mean? Yeah, that, and also to sidestep the Class 3 weapons requirement that your sheriff sign off if you want to get a silencer or a fully automatic weapon under certain circumstances. Well, Class 3 weapons, and then everything else is called AOWs. They're any other weapon that they have that you have to get a tax stamp for and go through the FBI investigation.
Yeah, and there's a requirement that the sheriff sign off on, or head of local law enforcement sign off on it.
Well, to make sure that it'll be kept in a safe place and that it's not going to be kept laying around in your living room.
Right. But apparently the trusts do not have to get the approval of the local law enforcement officer. And so the theory is this allows you to sidestep that requirement because a lot of sheriffs and a lot of other people who are authorized to do that just simply won't sign any of them.
I'm aware of that, but I'm not so sure that that's always a good idea for your own well-being. Because even though you sidestep that, I'm not sure what the consequence is when you go to insure it through an insurance company.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer either. That's why we're bringing this guy on next week. He's going to explain it all to us. So listen next week and let me know what your thoughts are.
I will. That's definitely of interest. So,
all right, my friend.
Well, I hope I helped you out with that a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw Terry back on. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Terry, you're back on.
Okay.
So you heard that.
I did.
So the crime you're convicted of, was it a misdemeanor or a felony?
I have no idea, but I don't know.
You're going to need to, and it happened in Florida?
Yes.
You're going to want to contact Florida and just go to the Florida website, florida.gov. Figure out how to get your criminal history from Florida. Get a certified copy of your criminal history, and we'll start there.
Okay.
All right?
Very good.
All right, my friend.
Thank you.
Okay. Jason, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. My talk line number is 540-0580. Apparently, you want to move to Washington State soon? What's going on? Jason? Nope.
You talking to me?
Yeah. Are you burning one right now? What's going on?
No, I didn't say anything about moving to Washington State.
Oh, all right. I'm joking you.
Oh, okay. Hey, Yeah, I got arrested for possession of a small amount of marijuana and paraphernalia in 1999.
Okay.
And I had my license to carry firearms at the time. The license was never revoked or suspended, but it was I forget how long they last, 2 years I think. When I went to renew it, I was denied, and to this day, I'm still being denied. When I tried to apply for it again, and it was denied. I'm wondering if that. I heard you talking about. You alluded to it. I don't know if you went into full detail, but
the concealed carry permit. There's a prohibition on if you were under the Drugs or Cosmetic Act. A violation of the Drug or Cosmetic Act can be a bar to that, which is strange because it means even a small amount of marijuana paraphernalia becomes a bar to having one.
So that's a lifetime barment?
I believe it to be. You know, one of these days, and I've been thinking about doing this, I need to do a little research and see if there's a way to re-enable you under the to sidestep that, because it really seems stupid. Now, excuse my French, right? It really seems stupid that you would lose your right to own a firearm over something that's basically going to become legal conduct in many of the states.
Well, I'm allowed to own them. I'm just not allowed to
conceal carry, right? But it's a right, and to me, well, it's a right, but we're a must-issue state, and so I can have a history. I can have a misdemeanor history for other things, right? Yeah. But I can't have a pot violation 30 years ago and get a concealed carry permit.
Right, it's ridiculous. I agree. Well, let me be your guinea pig, Carl.
All right, come see me.
All right, I will.
All right, brother.
All right, thanks.
Bye. Got to go to break. See you in a minute. You know, it's that time of year again where you get to watch It's a Charlie Brown Christmas. And, I mean, does anybody really like Lucy? Really, just think of it. I mean, I know people love Lucy because that's a whole other show. But I'm just saying, she tortures that poor man, that poor chronically depressed man. Kevin, you're on WHP 580.
Hi, Carl. How are you?
Good.
Anyhow, I'm in Lebanon County, and we're getting reassessed, as you know, and they got done with their reassessment thing.
Yes.
And I'm one of the lucky ones of the 5,000 or more that are taking it to court because our taxes tripled. Not as bad as the ones in Mount Gretna that went from $800 to $5,000 a year, but ours went from $1,200 to $3,000. Anyhow, I pulled out my original mortgage papers so I could bring up all my evidence and exhibits to show that my house is not worth as much as they say it is. And it really isn't. It's over 200 years old and stuff. But the main thing is my property map. It shows that it's 4.6 acres, 4.07 acres, and 3.5 after easement. So my question is easement property taxable, or can I show the judge that, hey, this is unusable property, a half acre's worth, because they're saying I've got a $60,000 base acre in a neighborhood where it goes for $20,000 an acre.
Well, okay, let's talk about this for a minute. Let's think about it. The answer is yes, easement property is taxable, but it can affect the value of the property. And what I mean by that, okay, let's just pretend for a minute you live on a 1 acre lot, okay?
Uh-huh.
Just a square acre. And the back half of the acre, it's a square acre, but the back half of the acre is under an easement. And your house sits entirely on the front half of the acre. Well, you're still going to play in that as your backyard. And your kids are still going to be able to, use a swing set and do things as long as you don't interfere with the nature of the easement, okay? Uh-huh. So some easements could be so restrictive that you would say, I can't do anything in that yard. I can't place any outsheds. I can't do any of this. I can't do any of that. And somebody else would say, yeah, but your kid can still ride in circles in the big wheel and tumble in the grass, and there's still a tree back there for some shade that you can put a chair under and read a book. So it still has some value appertinent to the property. In other words, you still have a backyard. Other times, that portion that's under easement, like I said, would be so unusable that you really couldn't use it, or the way it was laid out on the land, it really made the use of that quadrant of the land problematic. So what's the purpose of this easement that you have?
Two sides of my property is a roadway easement, and then I've got Comcast, MedEd, and Verizon right-of-ways.
And are they
cutting through the middle of my property in two different places?
Okay, so those portions may not truly make it unusable, but the roadway portions are not usable to you, right?
That is correct.
So So it's just going to become a case-by-case analysis, if that makes sense. So the fact that it's easement property doesn't make it worthless.
Right. No, I'm just saying, would I be able to say, okay, you're saying that my property is worth X amount per acre. This half acre is, that would be worth considerably less.
Correct. And here's the other thing. Acreage is weird because I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but if you buy a 40 acre lot or a 1 acre lot, the cost per acre is very different.
Well, I noticed that because they itemize the property description that you get at the courthouse.
Right.
That describes the property. They itemize the property separate from the buildings. And so we've got some property for sale, and I brought some examples of that, and I told the fellow at the assessment hearing, because you have two before you actually have to go to court. And I said, hey, look, this property is going for half as much, and it's level, it's flat, it's cleared, it has no woods on it, and they're asking half as much. That's fair market value. And he goes, oh, we don't care. Everything is a base acre of $60,000, whether it's 1 acre or whether it's a quarter acre. We're still calling it a base acre of $60,000.
Right.
And that's, I'm sorry, but that's, anyhow, when I say...
He's not completely inaccurate at that, because what he's basically saying is, once you have a plot of land that you can put a building on, there's a certain base price to it.
Right.
But conversely, if it was 100 acres, you're probably not going to pay $60 an acre for it, right?
Right. And like I say, and that's the problem because of the forest and the terrain of this thing, because it drops 80 foot over, topographically.
Do you have an appraiser in on this yet?
We had it appraised when we bought it.
No, I mean for your hearing. When you go in front of a court, it's your job to provide competent evidence, right?
Right.
And
which I've got a whole bunch of it compiled. I did not pay for an appraiser.
Right. And in terms of admissibility of all this evidence, are you prepared to authenticate them and get them in over hearsay objections?
Oh yeah, because I've got my original mortgage papers with the property description. Also, I've got
those are
estimates for what it would take to make the house worth what they say it would.
Well, I'm saying, but how do you get the estimates in?
I'm sorry?
How are you going to get the estimates into court?
Well, they're written down.
Well, yeah, okay. So we're in court, all right? Okay, we're going to play. We're going to have a game here. We're in court. I'm the other lawyer. Now you say, Judge, here's my estimate. Do that.
Right.
No, say it. I want to hear you say, Judge, I have a written estimate here. Say it.
Yes, I have a written estimate showing that...
Objection, Your Honor.
What's that?
Lacks authentication. Hearsay. And you're going to say, well, but Judge, I got it from... You didn't create that written estimate. Somebody else did, Judge. I want the person who created it to come in and authenticate it.
Oh, man.
And I want, and by the way, even if they could authenticate it, somebody authenticated it still contains hearsay, so you better know that it's a business record kept in the normal course of business and be able to figure out which exemption on the hearsay rule. My point is, and this goes for all you people in Lebanon, no offense to you, you all, because I know a bunch of you, trust me, I've talked to so many people from Lebanon County who are all planning to go in and win these things. And you got to be really careful, because if your judges decide to hold you to the rules of evidence and the other lawyers are just clever enough to make simple objections, 92% of what you want to admit is not going to get in.
Oh, sure. But, and the thing
But then you
is
lose. You got it? You lose. It's your burden.
Oh, I know. But the formula that they wrote up for our reassessment, it is so...
But if who? So you're going to tell the judge you don't like the formula? Sir, let me ask you a question. What are your qualifications? Are you an expert in assessment? No? Okay, then I don't care about your opinion. You can only give factual
testimony. No, but I am an
testimony.
expert in construction.
Okay, well, there you go. You might be able to get in on that. But my point is you have to be really careful. Here's why you get an appraiser, okay? You ready?
Uh-huh.
The appraiser comes in as your expert witness. The appraiser says, here's the value that I've come up with. And by the way, because I'm an expert, I can rely on hearsay and unauthenticated documents. And I can tell the court all the things I relied on and show the court all the things I relied on. So your expert witness becomes your key to making almost all of this admissible and to allowing for opinion testimony about why the formulations are good or bad.
Sure.
So keep in mind, you probably are going to have a really hard time representing yourself because, as I tell other people, I love nothing better than an unrepresented person in court.
Well, this whole thing has cost so much already, and we can't afford it. And for what they're jacking our taxes up, we're going to lose our house.
Well, I understand, but you're still going to get smacked like a redheaded stepchild in court.
Yeah, I'm a redhead. Watch it.
if you don't have a lawyer there. And I just really, really caution people about this. Now, maybe the judges of Lebanon County are going to go ahead and loosen the rules and say we've got so many people coming in that are disgruntled that we know that something's wrong here and we're just going to not follow the rules. But if the assessment office comes in and says we're going to play hardball, they're going to shut 87% of everybody's testimony down. And then you're not going to meet your burdens, and your taxes aren't going to change.
Well, also, and I think it kind of depends on the individual, too. I mean, they made counteroffers to some of our neighbors, but not to us.
Right.
And I don't
That's not
understand that.
admissible.
I don't know whether that's a personal thing, whether it's attitude or what.
You're redheaded, right? No, it's not. It's not admissible, though. That's the problem. The settlement offers with other people is irrelevant. So maybe, like I say, maybe the judges get very pragmatic and equitable about this entire situation. But Lebanon County judges are, it's not a county that I go into and think I'm just going to be able to flim-flam my way around either. So I would definitely just counsel everybody out there who wants to challenge these things to think long and hard about going to court by themselves. Here's the good news. Are you ready?
Sure.
If you go by yourself and you screw it all up and you lose miserably, your assessment is deemed to renew every year, and your court challenge and your right to challenge it renews every year.
Yeah, that's what they said. The one good thing about Lebanon County was you can still reapply for an appeal every year.
Which you can, and so the good news is, if you go this route, and I'm wrong and you're right and you're fine, then call me up and tell me about it. And tell me
I will.
Very, very easygoing and let everything in, and the other side didn't. And maybe they will, because I think they're in hot water over there.
They really are, because there are so many people who are disgruntled. And, Carl, it just scares me to death, all the people out here that are on fixed income that have like 4 and 5 generation farms.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to lose them.
Now, let's just say, on the other hand, though, I'm right, and the judges just decide to clamp down, and the other side plays a really hard ball, right?
Huh?
The good news is you only have 1 year of those high taxes, because the next year we'll get the appraiser and we'll walk in and we'll present the case in a different manner and meet our burden, and then the burden will switch back to them to show that their assessment's justified, which they won't be able to do, because I've seen how crazy these things are.
Oh, it's nuts.
And now, theoretically, they're going to readjust all the millage rates, right? And everything will be happy. Everybody will live happily ever after again. But that's not going to happen.
I've heard yeas and nays on that.
Yeah, once they'll readjust the millage rates. But when we talk about readjustments, they're not going to be dramatic. Okay? And once they readjust the millage rates, people whose taxes went up 5 times might discover they're only going to go up 4 times.
Wow, that's
right?
Quite a concession.
Right. Well, there you go. Congratulations. I got to go take the next caller here. But
hey, Carl, thank you so much for your help. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Take care, man.
Bye.
540-0580. Rose, you're on the air.
Yes. I would like to try to figure out how to cost-effectively change one part of our will. In the event that my husband, myself, and my son pass away, it goes to, originally it was to go to our nieces and nephews. But none of them are living any kind of lifestyle that we approve of. And I was wondering how difficult and how expensive that would be to change that part of the will.
Well, since at our office, if you're a WHP 580 listener, we do free wills.
Oh.
All you got to do is call in and say, I'm a fan of the radio show and I want the free will kit. They'll send it out to you, and we'll just rewrite the wills from scratch.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if we signed a letter and got it certified.
You can do something called a codicil to your will, where you just change a portion. But here's what's happened over the years. I mean, some old lawyers still write codicils, but codicils were created when the act of typing something up was a big deal.
Oh, okay.
And in the modern era with word processors, it's just as simple to just rewrite the entire will, and that way it's clean, and there is no a question about whether the codicil is a fake or whether you wanted to change it because you have a whole new will.
Oh, okay.
By the way, a little trivia question. Since your name is Rose, do you know rose is a rose is a rose is a rose? You ever heard that sentence?
Yes, and
do you know who wrote that?
No, I do not.
Gertrude Stein.
Oh,
anyhow,
okay.
Just some
there you go, trivia.
All right, so contact us, get the free wills.
Okay, hey, thank you.
All right, take care.
All right, bye-bye.
540-0580. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions. I got a whole bunch of stuff, I'm doing here, but most importantly, December 11th, Tuesday, Northern York County Fish and Game, beginning at 7 p.m. It's open. It's free to the public, 40 Bremer Road, York, PA. You can look up the specifics on RomingerLaw.com if you want. I'm going to be answering your gun law, gun rights questions. Going to talk about self-defense, when can you cap the intruder and all those good things. And we'll be there. So be there at 7 p.m. December 11th, Northern York County Fish and Game. It's 40 Bremer Road. And that's going to be your last warning because that'll be over by next week. So make sure you make it. Next Saturday, some guy's going to call. I couldn't make it. I was just wondering if you could recap everything you talked about. Okay, if you can't make it for legitimate reasons, that's great. But if you're just, too lazy to drive or get there or just forget, whatever, ball's in your court then. And then next Saturday, however, we will have David Goldman, the gun trust lawyer, on to talk about gun trusts and all those good things at 2 p.m. And I'm not going to go through all the announcements right now because we need to take a few callers before we go. Jorge, you're on the air.
Hey, Carl, how you doing today?
Good, man. What's going on?
Great. Question regarding my municipality recently received a letter. Actually, most of the folks on my short section of street, just about a one-block section of our street, the letter announced that they're planning a repaving project for the street for next 2013. That they and I've come to find out they are just resurfacing the street, not taking it up, putting new down. And right on the letter, they also dictated we have large mature trees in the neighborhood between the curb sidewalk thing, sidewalk issues regarding trips. And I don't have a great deal of questions about, problem with the sidewalk issues. They need to be addressed. I mean, I've got a liability concern there.
Mm-hmm.
However, they are mandating, in my particular case, 20-plus feet of curb that they estimate to be replaced. The curb is fine. It is fully intact. It is simply that at two trees on my frontage, the tree has pushed the curb out approximately 1 inch. And there are, I'm going to say probably 15 folks, 15, maybe 18 folks on this street. Almost everyone that has curbs of that nature, the issue, or they were addressed also. And we had the borough engineer out last week to take a look at it, and he certainly wouldn't take any side or stand, and say that, hey, they're okay, they're really all right, it's not a big deal. He was just there to point out, what his concerns were. Frankly, I'm of the mind, and he claimed that, and actually I went to the borough council meeting last week and was told that every time that they decide to repave a street, they do this. However, I could certainly show pictures and evidence of several other streets that have been repaved in the last 5 years that there are curbs that are either non-existent, crumbled away, or slightly out of alignment, just as much or more than mine are, and none of those were taken care of. Of course, the end of the letter threatened to fix it with a 10% premium and charge me for all fees and everything else. Recourse on my end? I got the ordinance, by the way. The ordinance doesn't say anything about curb seams must come together, anything like that. It gives I'm sure you're aware of that passage where it says same thing with the sidewalks. If it's deemed unsafe,
right,
and a trip hazard, they have the right to do that.
So they're basically trying to force you to put in new curbing.
Correct.
And, of course, as you know, putting in curbing is very expensive.
Correct.
And you're saying is historically when you guys have repaved other areas, if the curb is as good as mine, you really haven't made anybody replace it.
Or at least if they threatened them, they never followed through on it.
And the problem with municipalities is past inaction is not a defense to current action. Government doesn't really, they get to be selective in their enforcement, kind of. So my thought on the matter is maybe you can work it out with them. Maybe you could get somebody to come out and look at the curb and say, hey, this curb is fit. Doesn't need replaced. How did they come up with how much curb needs to be replaced? They sent somebody out and they came up.
They sent the borough, the highway manager, whatever he's called, supervisor, as well as the borough engineer. And when I first spoke to the engineer on the phone, he said, listen, he said that I questioned him, what constitutes bad curb? If it's out of alignment a quarter of an inch, is that acceptable? Well, if it's half an inch, if it's an inch? And I said, well, what determines it? Well, it's sort of arbitrary.
Right.
In other words, it's their judgment.
So, and did you talk with the town fathers yet?
Briefly, yes. I spoke to one of the councilmen. He pretty much referred it and deferred it to the engineer. We rely on on his judgment, was his comment.
Yeah, so my thought on that matter is you got to fight engineers with engineers or somebody that knows what they're doing. So if you can get somebody to come out and say, no, this curb is actually substantially good, and then if you really want to go the step farther is go ahead and pick one or two of the areas where they have repaved but let other curbing stay. And have that person say that it's obviously more fit than the Mulberry Street curbing in such and such area, which was allowed to stay when it was repaved a year and a half ago or whatever. That might get you to where you need to be, and then present it at a town meeting. Now, what's 14 foot worth of curb going to cost? Do we know?
I haven't even gotten to that step yet because I fundamentally don't want to do it.
Right.
The curb's fine. It's 100% fully intact. It's not even tilted over. It's like I said, simply at the seam areas pushed out. Go
out and scrub it up really good with some, concrete cleaner.
Got it.
And call them up and say you got it replaced and you want them to inspect it.
Okay.
And when they say it looks great, you'll get them. You'll have them.
Okay.
I mean, I don't have a great answer for you because I really think you got to fight. You got to fight the determination. Unfortunately, so the question would be, what does the new? I would get an estimate on the new curbing, and that way you'll at least know how much money. Where should you draw your battle line?
Got it.
This is City Hall. It's the problem with fighting City Hall.
Right. The old story. Yes.
Right. I never understood that as a kid. I really never quite understood. You can't fight City Hall. And then later you realize you can't fight City Hall. I know what they mean now. All right, my friend.
All right. I appreciate it, Carl.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. All right. Bye.
540-0580. Michelle, you're on the air.
Hi. Good afternoon, Carl.
What's going on?
I have a question regarding unreturned library items.
I've been meaning to take that back.
I'm sorry?
I've been meaning to take that back for a while now.
Oh, yeah. That's exactly what happened to me. Although I had a health issue and I was undergoing some treatment, and I had called them to tell them that it was I couldn't get them back when they were due. And the next thing I knew, I got a call saying, if you didn't return them, we're sticking the police on you. And so I returned them, and I still got a summons from our wonderful local district magistrate saying that I needed to come in and plead to this citation.
How much of the fine are they wanting?
I don't have the paper in front of me. I just thought to give you a ring real quick before your show was out.
Plead not guilty.
It's probably a couple hundred.
Plead not guilty. Take the hearing. Okay?
Yes.
When you go to the hearing, show up and say, hey, here's the situation. I had a health problem, and I want some consideration, and I did return them, and they may work it out with you. If they don't, you'll have a 30-day right of appeal, okay?
Yeah, well, this particular justice doesn't give a rat's patootie.
Yeah. I got to go. 241-6070 is the office number, 241-6070. I'll be at the Northern York County Fishing Game this Tuesday night, 7 p.m. I'll see you guys there.